I wanted to talk a little bit in some creepy ass lighting. Um, Algorithms and the internet and purveying opinions. I wanted to originally make this video about one very short Instagram video that I saw yesterday that I was trying to find. I didn't save it. I would love to be able to find it at some point and link it. However, I really don't get that many views anyway, so I'm not really too worried about it. While thinking about what I was going to say for this video today, I was watching random YouTube videos and I stumbled across a handful of videos that were a little bit weird to me. This series of videos and people that I've watched for years now. One of the most prominent YouTubers that I've consistently watched over the years is Dark Matter 2525. Into the Fray, as it's called now, or Amazing Atheist, I used to watch when I was a kid. I kind of stopped watching him. I'm not really too sure why I stopped watching him. It just kind of fell off my radar, and I just haven't really gone out of my way to see his things. Maybe I just forgot to hit the bell icon years ago and just never really crossed my mind to look him up until recently, or until he made a response to Dark Matter's recent video. Another one of those people that I watched for a while was Philosophy Tube. I watched Philosophy Tube for a few years, so much so that I didn't understand that Philosophy Tube transitioned, and I thought that they like at first I saw the female, and I thought that they changed, and then I realized watching older videos that it was actually something very different. And there was a couple of very helpful and interesting videos that I did watch that I actually enjoyed a lot. So about 8 months ago, I want to say, Philosophy Tube made a couple of videos that I would say probably aren't the highest quality, and if I'm being honest, maybe their most recent videos are the best. Obviously, a lot of people lose a little bit of interest, and it's just kind of one of those things where people just either don't really particularly appreciate, or they just didn't really find some of the newer things that you're making compelling. They're very clickbaity Nietzsche videos. It got me to listen to a Nietzsche audiobook while I was driving a truck for a pretty long time, but that was pretty much the most it did. Um, Today, for whatever reason, there were recommendations on my YouTube feed from the same time that the Philosophy Tube, um, Abigail Thorne, I almost forgot her name, uh, made those Nietzsche videos that I hadn't seen before, and it was basically people trying to call her out. I even saw one video that tried to label her as a Zionist, and it was very concerning to me because it wasn't as if many of the videos were signifying anything other than not really good research. And who should be more surprised than any mature adult on the internet that some videos may not be well researched, and lo and behold, some people may not always have good takes. This similar thing happened with Dark Matter when he was talking about trying to reform the justice system, which I do have my opinions on, and I wanted to make a video for that. But I feel like TJ covered it a little bit. There's a couple of things that I would like to talk about. However, nobody's going to see these videos, so it doesn't really matter. The amount of channels that came out at the same time, conveniently, uh, to basically try to go out of their way to tell you to now hate Philosophy Tube, really, I think, shows me the nature of the internet and algorithmic culture and bandwagons and people saying things without actually thinking about what they're saying, or trying to really make a video and make a bigger statement or make something bigger than it actually is, to the point to where it makes people lose a little bit of credibility, and it makes it to where virtually everything on the internet's not trustworthy. We all know that everything on the internet's clickbaity, but we don't realize how many trends are actually being followed until you look at the time frames that certain videos of different people saying the same opinions and not really having too many interesting things to add to it, or outright dismissing or telling you to be outraged at a particular person, uh, conveniently when other people are telling you to. This has made it to where a lot of people have become relatively exhausted from the internet and from caring about actual issues. This was the original video I wanted to make, where I saw I believe, an Instagram reel of a guy basically saying he didn't care anymore. and that he was just going to spend his well-being on spend time caring about his well-being about his family. Now, some of the things he said were very interesting. I'm going off of memory because I can't find it, but he essentially talked about how the news was very much just 52 negative things about the world that you can't fix, and you don't care anymore, and blah blah blah. Why do you know what the Strait of Hormuz is? Just focus on your family. Conveniently today, I also had another conversation with a coworker that was actually really political and very interesting. However, she very much told me how she wanted to do more research to feel more informed about things and to feel like she needed to know enough about a thing to have an opinion about it. And all of these things, this earnest uh, effort for knowledge that a lot of people have, and I feel like a lot of people have that until they get to the point of the other guy where they're just not interested in anything anymore and they kind of essentially give up on society. Sorry, you had to watch me pick up a guitar pick because I'm trying to do five things at once. But people should be allowed to have some bad takes. And I feel like intention should also be a thing that's very good. You can do a thing and have a couple of things wrong about it, but as long as you're trying to do a good thing, I think that should matter. And I think trying to express information to people while not necessarily being accurate about that information is more useful than trying to tear down people who don't necessarily have the facts straight or might have a couple of bad actors in that case. To find a way to force Trump into the conversation, it is wild to me how there are people in our current administration who are actively and almost maliciously trying to do bad things, yet good, earnest people or people who are just trying to make a living with the content, or people who might be a little bit more entertaining than informative, or people who could be more informative, or people who might be saying things that are technically accurate but misleading, are always the ones that get the flack. Manipulation doesn't necessarily come from accidents, right? Manipulation is not a thing that happens accidentally. It's a thing that happens very intentionally. And I think what people don't realize is a lot of your thoughts really are kind of ruled by algorithms. And that's kind of the biggest problem about learning about the world around yourself, learning how to make yourself a more useful and happy person, and separating people from your life that are actually making you miserable. Another YouTube channel that I watch, I actually started watching recently. That I never heard of this guy before now, and I'm surprised I haven't because his videos are really good. I believe it's Farming While Beige, and I saw his that I will try to find the link for, where he essentially explained how he's tired of liberal and liberals trying to be so accurate or more experts or so knowledgeable to where you're going to get your A minus on some sort of imaginary test. And he also talked about how he was basically delivering eggs for essentially free using funds that he had to essentially feed hungry people, and how even liberals were going to have a problem with that because how dare you have that much money concentrated in one area, blah 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 blah. All of this while people are actively trying to protest and are actively trying to solve your problems and are working on issues that you know about but you don't know enough about to really understand that people are concerned about the same issues that you are about. And that's basically what Hank Green talks about when you watch his channel. He basically says you know enough about something to be worried about it, but not enough to know that people are actively working on it or what things are put in place to try to mitigate those issues. So you don't understand, and you're basically just informed because it's performative outrage. Performative outrage is a very big thing about our culture, and that essentially has made it to where a lot of well intentioned protests or community gatherings or actual rallying to solve problems has essentially been dismissed. Right now, in my home state of Georgia, there are data centers that are being built that people are rallying against and are actively protesting, and people have actually successfully postponed the building of them because they don't want their electricity bills and they don't want the noise to go up and they don't want the fresh water to all be used and to be fighting for resources over a company that makes billions of dollars already. And they're essentially just going to be using these data centers to either collect information about us or make it to where there's more data storage that we have to pay for and make data more of a premium so that we don't have the option to have things on our own flash drives, as well as using it for AI or whatever other techie stuff. If you want to know more about that, probably watch somebody that actually knows about the techie stuff. I'm not really a computer geek, so I can only really tell you what I know. And that's the biggest thing too. You have to present yourself as some sort of an expert in virtually everything. And then you have to present your information as though it's completely accurate, because if you acknowledge that you might be wrong about something, then people will dog on you for it. Or if you have a wrong take, people will bandwagon to basically get onto you to make their own shitty content. And it's basically just a bunch of shitty videos of people responding to each other. And then we have people responding to people responding to people. And then we have prevailing opinions that everybody seems to have, but nobody really seems to know where they come from. And then we complain about postmodernism, not understanding that that's exactly what postmodernism is. Right now, we have people whose political ideology is the exact same fucking thing as the Ku Klux Klan. I want to stress this. I'm not trying to be exaggerative. I'm not trying to be somebody. What I'm trying to say is there are active issues that you can care about and you can be informed about without letting it ruin the rest of your life. So many people feel the need to go through life to being ignorant of these issues and being so useless to their community that they don't want to learn enough to understand how they can actually do it, if how and if there's actually something. And then there's all this information to go about and all these opinions to go about. So people have really opinions that want to be corrected, or they have really stupid opinions and then they kind of give up because they don't want to be criticized. I think it's fun. I think how politics nowadays, when there's actual real tangible issues that we can be pointed to and can be solved, but people don't want to solve them, and it's too controversial because there's too many people that are going to double down and basically argue with you, or even try to go out of their way to ruin your life for having the wrong opinion. Now all of a sudden nobody cares about politics. We did a few years ago, but now we don't. Political pressure actually does make a positive impact onto your politicians, and it is important for you to know what your politicians are doing so that you can put your pressure onto those politicians. Just voting isn't going to do anything, just like not voting is not going to do anything. The internet has become a really stupid way of engaging with the world, in which you don't even really have communities of people that are with each other. You basically just have established beliefs that you don't necessarily get to understand where they come from, and you get the feeling of being informed without actually being informed. On top of that, you don't really get the grace that you do in an actual educational environment where you're allowed to be wrong. And then we wonder why stupid people keep saying stupid things over and over and over again. We wonder why there's political hostility when political conversations are started with hostility and then met with hostility. And many of the people that start political conversations with hostility wonder why people are being hostile back at them. Like, sorry that I was being mean to you, but you were just calling me a Satanist, leftist, evil person that was trying to ruin the foundation of American families, even though 2 minutes ago I didn't know who the fuck you were. But guess what? Now I'm calling you an asshole and you can deal with it. No matter how right or wrong you are, most of the voters in America are some of the least informed people. My ex knew virtually nothing about politics, yet she still voted, and I argued with her because she would tell me how voting was important to me, but she didn't even know what she was voting for half the goddamn time. She would also tell me how important it was to believe in the Bible, but never actually read the goddamn thing, unlike me, who actually has read it twice. And instead of respecting my individual opinion about it, she basically tried to make my beliefs a moral decision. The issues I have with those things are the same issues I have with liberal media online, and basically conservative media online, and basically all forms of media with any sort of political undertones nowadays, where everything is more of a litmus test for what you believe rather than an earnest attempt of actually educating or knowing about things. None of this really comes from a curiosity for most people. And that's what always struck me as really confusing. I've always wanted to learn more about things, even if it had nothing to do with me. But even if I didn't really care what the end result was, I just found it fascinating to learn about. Now, learning how to learn about things is very difficult. I don't know if you've ever seen what research actually entails, but it takes a lot of effort. And some of it, ordinary people like me, don't really fully understand. And this kind of goes into my same thing that I've been saying for a couple of videos now. It's only politics when somebody disagrees with you or somebody doesn't agree with you all the way. It's manipulation. It's only a cult if it's somebody else's opinion. But you never really have to evaluate your own opinions or understand that you don't really have to judge other people for being a little bit wrong. If I do a math problem and I'm off by a couple of numbers and there's just a minor thing that needs to be fixed in order to solve that math problem, I don't think it's fair to compare me to people who don't believe in math. In the very interest of capitalism itself, we have allowed our information to follow the money rather than follow the facts, and then we wonder why we're still fucking stupid. That's all I got for you today. Have fun.